So welcome. Oh. Now we can start. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Central Park United Neighbors Annual Community Forum. Thank you for joining us. My name is Geoff Horsfall and I am president of CPUN. I succeeded Amanda Allshouse in this role just about a year ago. Our vice president who took over that role from me is back here. Her name is Carol Hunter. And before we begin, I would just want to acknowledge that for the first time in over 2 years, a meeting of CPUN is being held in person, which we are all very grateful for. And I want to say a special thank you to Diane and Dana from the MCA and Noelle as well, but for all of her help today in granting us the space and making this happen. For those of you at home and those of you at the room, the MCA unfortunately had a bit of a technical explosion, and so they've gone to great trouble to accommodate a hybrid format, which is how we'd like to proceed with our meetings in the future if all things go well. It's our hope that circumstances will allow us to continue in this format with a full functioning technology within the next month or so. And our hope is that by offering both options, we both grow awareness about our work, but also add some transparency to the way in which that we go about it. So thank you again. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with CPUN and our unique role in the community, we're the registered neighborhood organization for the Central Park community in Denver and Aurora. We're here to facilitate a dialogue and create awareness around opportunities to engage on topics of importance to this community. We help people to find their way into a process so that resident questions, concerns, and ideas for a better neighborhood and community can be pursued in a constructive and inclusive way. We promote public service, civic discourse, and collective efficacy. We host monthly meetings, and through the work of our 6 working committees, we facilitate the dialogue of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem avoidance, and amicable problem solving. So CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming neighborhood for all members of our community. And it's important for all of you to know that we are an all-volunteer board of your neighbors and a registered 501c3. Next slide, Mark. So here's tonight's agenda. As I said, this is our annual community forum. And while it in many ways resembles our typical monthly meetings, it differs in a couple of key ways. One, it is at this meeting that residents have the opportunity to vote on a slate of residents who will represent the community on this board for a 2-year term. And I'll discuss what that looks like in greater detail shortly. Second, where our monthly meetings tend to offer news and updates on a kind of a month-to-month basis, we take this opportunity of an annual forum to emphasize broader changes over the past year, as well as take a look into the year ahead. Our agenda for the evening will open with some CPUN board business, including a summary of our work from the last year and a presentation of the previously mentioned slate to the community. We'll then move on to presentations from Denver Police Department, from Diane from the MCA, which will be wonderful. CPUN board member Jack Seward, there he is, will be providing an update on fire mitigation and fire concerns in the community. We'll get a development update from Kelly Pretzer from Brookfield, as well as Tyler Carlson from Evergreen. Denver Public Schools will be represented by Karen Mortimer, who's the chair for the District Accountability Committee. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Councilman Chris Herndon. Next slide, please. Is it going okay for everybody online? I see Jamie nodding. Jamie, you're going to be my person. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm very proud of the work that our board has done over the last year, and I look forward to sharing that work with you. But I also do want to take a moment to acknowledge, I should say, that the good stuff that is happening in Central Park goes well beyond our organization. I think one of the nice things about being on this board is that you get to see just how many residents, groups, and organizations there are out there who are giving of themselves, sharing their passions, all with very little recognition in return, just to make our community a better place to be. So thank you to all of them. And if CPUN, if you're out there and you count yourself among the those people or those residents, and CPUN might be able to help spotlight your work, I hope you'll reach out. I encourage you to reach out because we'd like to help. Our work last year was executed across several domains. I think the first of which was tending to the health and effectiveness of the board itself. And we made 3 key bylaw changes. One was expanding the footprint to include Central Park residents in Aurora. Previously, we only included Central Park residents in Denver, and that was a product of this RNO being registered with the city and county of Denver. But we've cleared it with their offices and recognized that by creating one organization for our entire community, that we would better represent the needs of all residents of this neighborhood. So as a result of this change, residents of Central Park with an Aurora address can join this board if they wish. Residents of Central Park with an Aurora address can vote on CPUN board business. And really, again, the goal is just to be more inclusive of all residents of the Central Park community. We will remain a Denver RNO. The second bylaw change that we made was to expand the maximum size of our board from 15 to 19 members. Although this is not the case at the present, we found ourselves with more candidates than there are available seats multiple times in the last couple of years. And we always want to encourage participation in our community. And we never want to be an organization that says, we're full, you can't join. The population of Central Park has more than doubled since that 15-seat limit was initially established. And this change reflects that. Also, it gives us the opportunity to increase representation in the sort of diverse constituencies of our community that with a lower limit might not have as many opportunities to join. And then the final bylaw change that we made was making former president an officer role on the CPUN Executive Committee. Current roles are president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And adding a former president role is just good for the long-term health of the organization. It adds continuity and experience to our officers pool, creates room for a new member of the board to become an officer, and creates an opportunity to keep former presidents who tend to burn out, let's say, after a long period of time to be an active member of our board in a less demanding capacity. So our first ever former president is Amanda Allshouse, and we're so glad to have her in that capacity. But we went well beyond just sort of tightening up the gears of CPUN this year. Another big area of emphasis was community partnerships. We've established, we're in the second year, I should say, of a very generous grant from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. They have been incredibly supportive of us in terms of outreach funding. Our website, email mechanism is all supported by the foundation. We're also partnering with the CPBA on a welcome bag giveaway, which is an initiative where we're trying to raise awareness about not just our organization, but other opportunities to participate in the community. So we're delivering bags. You could actually see a bunch of them, the next shipment worth from Geoff here out in the hallway to new residents. Initially, we're focusing on the far north neighborhoods. That's a neighborhood that we've heard feedback just doesn't have a good sense of what's going on farther south, perhaps, or what's going on in the community in general. But we also want to start taking these to renters and senior homes and other constituencies within the neighborhood. We worked with Councilman Herndon on a District 8 community blood drive. I think one of the most exciting things and things that I'm most proud of from this year was our work with Councilman Herndon to make that event more inclusive by spotlighting the discriminatory policies that prevent men who have sex with men from participating in blood donation policy. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had the privilege of going down to City Council and accepting a proclamation that was issued by Councilman Herndon in support of raising awareness and moving towards shifting those discriminatory policies. And then the final thing that I want to talk a little bit about is that this past year, CPUN assumed the responsibility of the Citizens Advisory Board, or CAB. For those of you that don't know, in 1995, the Stapleton Development Corporation was formed to serve as the primary vehicle for selling and leasing property in the community, then known as Stapleton. SDC identified Forest City, for example, as the master developer, and the Citizens Advisory Board, which was established by Mayor Webb, served to advise the SDC via one non-voting seat on its board. CAB consisted of community members and business leaders, and their role was to review development proposals for consistency with the Green Book, which documents the vision of what this community aspires to be. With the land that remains from the original acquisition fairly limited at this point and development nearly complete, CPUN has been asked to see the work of CAB through, and it's really our pleasure to do so. When the reins are sort of officially turned over to CPUN in the next month or two, I think CAB and its members will leave behind a pretty remarkable legacy. The vision and execution of a master planned community on the scale of Central Park is unprecedented, and CAB deserves a lot of recognition and gratitude for its success. I think of the way that they fought for achieving our affordable housing goals as a specific example of the impact that that organization had. And so just on behalf of CPUN, I want to thank the members of CAB, past and present, for their dedication and their achievements, especially Jim Wagenlander and Lucia Carell, who've just been gracious guides and guardians as CPUN transitions into this new role. So just a big thank you to the members of the CAB. At the committee level, we had a number of accomplishments that I think are worth sharing. Our outreach committee, in addition to organizing the welcome bag, provided its first community survey since 2019, and those survey results are really important to shaping the direction of our board. We relay that information where it's relevant to key stakeholders in the community, and so it was a big deal to have again our first one in 3 years. Our DEI committee also issued a survey. It's the first ever survey dedicated to topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you'll forgive me, I just have a few remarks that I want to read that were provided to me by that committee's chair, Shalise. Shalise, forgive me for reading this, but at our March community meeting, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee presented some results from the DEI community survey conducted in August and September of 2021. One of the goals of the survey was to identify strengths and challenges related to DEI in Central Park. And to that end, we looked at respondents' feelings of discrimination around race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status to gauge how well or included they feel in Central Park. With regard to race and ethnicity, community-wide race discrimination was reported by 11% of respondents, but all non-white groups reported feeling racial, ethnic discrimination greater than the community average. Similarly, LGBTQ plus residents, lower income residents, and residents with less than college educations all reported higher rates of discrimination than the community averages in each category. The DEI committee will use these findings to shape our 2022 goals and projects going forward. So that's a good summary of what we intend to do with these surveys. We had a sad reminder of the importance of this work in Buffalo over the weekend. And on behalf of the DEI committee, I just wonder if we might just take a quick moment of silence to reflect on the violence there and the need for all of us to do our part to make a stronger community. Thank you. For the Sustainability Committee, two projects that we're really excited about. One is the Central Park Fruit Harvest. I don't know how many radars this came across, but it was a really cool project in which we shared the ways in which people are harvesting their own fruit. And we built maps and recipes and all kinds of interesting stuff. The really cool thing about it, though, was that the city picked it up, and their new climate action office has said they want to take it citywide, which is just a really exciting outcome for us. So we're currently working with the city, Mark Maringer, Brad here, Jamie, several members of our committee are all working to take that citywide, which I'm really excited about. We also hosted a home electrification seminar, converting your gas stoves, for example, to electricity. Our education committee hosted a school boards candidates forum, which was just fantastic. And I think a perfect example of the kind of thing that CPUN does well and uniquely positioned to do. And they also established a dialogue between our board and new director, Michelle Quattlebaum, who was just brought into office this fall. Our Safe Streets Committee, Brad has been plugging away at this. We're going to get that damn dog on this Central Park. The dog is on. We've been working on this project for years now to have, I don't know if you've been to Rhino, but they have the Rhino on the bike, and we wanted our own version of that. And so we've got a dog, he's right there. And Brad, maybe if you have do you have an update on when we might?
Yeah, so the contractor that is installing the bike lane misordered some parts. And of course, we tried to order the correct ones, they're on back orders, supply chain issues. But I just had an email today, and they hope that they're going to be done in June. Cautiously optimistic, but the paint's down, the dog is down on the bike lane, and then they actually have some of the posts up on the northbound side from Montview to about 26th. So I've actually seen some people out there enjoying it too. So hopefully it will be done, say like the next 6 weeks. Hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, and like I said, this has been a years-long project, but Brad has been on top of it in the last year to make sure it actually finishes. And as well, that committee has been great about engaging Dottie and educating our neighbors on communications with them. Finally, our Health and Safety Committee, engagement and awareness with Denver Police Department has been a big focal point for them, as has starting to put together the beginnings of a communication, outreach, and education plan around the topic of being housed and what that means for our community as well. I swear you're almost done from me. It's close. Next slide. So I do want to introduce the members of the CPUN board that did all this great work. I've been on this board for over 6 years, and I would say this is just the most active group I've ever been a part of. As I've mentioned, CPUN is an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents. Board members serve a 2-year term, and they are elected as a slate by you, the residents of the community who attend this annual forum, either in person or virtually. I just want to thank our entire board and their families for the time that they've given to our community. And if you are on the board, and maybe you just give a quick wave so that people can see you here. If the work that I've described here is of interest to any of you, we meet on the third Tuesday of each month from 6:30 to 8:30, and our meetings are always open to the public, and I encourage you to join us. We do have open board seats as well. So if you're interested in learning more about our work or the work of the board, do please reach out to us at centralparkunitedneighbors@gmail.com. I'd also like to take a moment to give my thanks, Mark, if you don't mind just sliding to the next slide there, to 2 departing board members, Jay Asberger and Jeff Ederer. Both served on our board for several years and made important contributions to the organization. Jay was particularly active in our education committee, helping to organize candidate forums, school choice informational sessions, and more. Jeff Ederer, who is right here in that Longhorns shirt, has been a valuable contributor across several aspects of our board. Specifically, I think about helping to facilitate communications during the community name identification process, establishing a fundraising arm for CPUN that will allow us to really improve our reach and connection across the community. Jeff also happens to be the newly elected president of CPBA. So we look forward to continuing to work with Jeff in that capacity in the future. All right, the slate. Where are we? There they are. So this year's slate consists of returning or incumbent, you might say, board members, with one exception, that being Liz Stallnicker, who's back there, who joined our board last fall. The slate was published to the community via social media and email last month, as well as in this month's edition of the Front Porch. CPUN is proud to present this slate to the community. All have given of their time and talent and energies to make our community a better place. I do want to make a special point of introducing Liz. She has already made meaningful contributions to our board as a member of our DEI and outreach committees, but really is being presented to the community for the first time this evening. So Liz, thank you for all of your work, and thank you for joining the board. As I said earlier, the members of the community present will vote on the slate in full. So this is the bureaucratic bit, or the logistical bit. If the slate is approved by a majority vote, all of the individuals in the slate will become board members. If the slate is not approved by a majority of vote, nominations for open positions will have to be taken individually by members of the members present at the meeting, including other directors. The individuals out of those so nominated receiving the most votes shall become directors. I would strongly encourage everyone to vote to approve this slate. It is a strong group of residents. They have earned a bit of recognition here this evening, and I encourage you to vote yes. Yes, excuse me. If you are online, you can vote. So if you, this is our, if you go to the next slide here, Mark, I have to sort of look and get a second here. Do you approve the slate of candidates to serve to a 2-year term on the Central Park United Neighbors Board of Directors? Does anyone in this room object? Does anyone on, no one online is objecting? Good, that's that. To those on the slate, welcome to another 2-year term on the board. Congratulations. All right. So I think at this point, you have heard plenty from me, and we're going to move on to the next portion of our meeting. So this is where we're going to do our first little deep dive into the technical pool here. Forgive me. And Lieutenant Hines, you have the privilege of being that first person. So for the people in the room, what I'm going to do is mute. Can you make Lieutenant Hines the presenter?
I am here. Geoff, if you guys can hear me. I don't have slides to put up. I was just going to talk, but I just want to make sure you guys can hear me all right before I get into this. I realized as you were presenting everything here at the start that I'm kind of the trial person. Oh, there you are, Geoff. How many people do I have in the audience there that I'm speaking to anyway?
You've got about, oh, what, 20? 20?
Ah, very good. Well, I'll get going here for you.
Off, but we can hear you great.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll get going on this. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Kevin Hines. I'm the lieutenant for Sector 1 in District 5 of the Denver Police Department. That is all of the Central Park neighborhood that is in Denver. So as Geoff was mentioning earlier, some of the neighborhood does extend into Aurora, but I have responsibilities for all of the portion of Central Park that's in Denver. I'm joined tonight by Danae Friends, who is our CRO. She's our community resource officer for that area. And I wanted to kind of run through some of the crime statistics. I get a lot of questions on these and just kind of give you an overview of where things are at for the Denver Police Department and your neighborhood here in the year so far and the past month or so. Just to give an idea where we're pulling this data, this is coming from NIBRS data. That's a National Incident-Based Reporting System. So just to give you a quick overview, for citywide crime data, violent crimes up 10% for the last 28 days and 13% year to date. Property crime citywide is down 6.8% over the last 28 days and up 43.2% year to date. And all crime is down 4.7% year to date, and, or I'm sorry, 4.7% in the last 28 days and up 19.1% for the year. As we hone in on data here in District 5, for the 28-day period, our crimes up, violent crimes up 21.8%, and year-to-date is 13.2%. I want to emphasize here that this is our district-wide data. Most of the violent crime we're seeing is in Sector 2, which is the eastern half of the district. So not as much of that is relevant to the Central Park neighborhood, but a little bit crosses the line both ways. Property crime is up 67.8% for the year for the district. And we have seen a reduction in domestic violence of 6.6% this year. Just giving you an idea of where we're seeing offenses throughout the district, Precinct 511 is the portion of the Central Park neighborhood that is generally north of I-70. That accounts for 19% of the offenses reported in the entire district. Precinct 512 is a portion of Central Park that's south of I-70. That accounts for 27% of the crime in the district. The remainder of the district accounts for the rest of the crime. That's all the areas east of Peoria Street and north of I-70. That would include Montbello, Tower Road Corridor, Gateway, and Green Valley Range. Continuing to look at some data here. Residential burglaries have been one of the areas that have always troubled us in Central Park and the Northfield area. In 2022, and this fits with data we've seen for about the last 5 years, 71% of our burglaries were to open or unsecured residences, most often open garages. But also to include unlocked vehicles with garage door openers that were left in the vehicles. So what we'll sometimes see as a criminal enters a unlocked vehicle, hits a button on the garage door opener and gets into your house that way. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 crime if you have your garage door opener in your vehicle and they use it to get into your house. We also want to caution people when we're talking about burglaries that if you have a shared garage environment, like many people in condos or apartments do throughout the neighborhoods, be careful about what you leave in these shared garages. Sometimes it's not even your neighbors stealing stuff, but just your neighbors allowing people to piggyback through the doors with them and get into the garage, and then somebody burglarizes you. So if you are in a shared garage situation, do be careful about what you're leaving in the garages. To give you an idea, for 2021 year to date, we had 51 residential burglaries. 37% of those were unsecured, so that's 72% of them. In 2022 so far, we've only had 21 residential burglaries. 15 of those were unsecured for 71%. So again, as you can see, we're holding right around that 72% range for unsecured burglaries. And the reason I always like to highlight that statistic is that we really can do a lot to reduce burglaries and crime in your neighborhood if we're all cognizant about making sure that we secure our vehicles, secure our garages, take valuables out of the vehicles and things of that nature. But the good news is, at least year to date, we're a lot lower on burglaries this year than we were last year. Auto theft is another one of the persistent problems we've had. And unfortunately, we had a huge spike of auto thefts back in March and April. As many of you are aware, it's something we talked about earlier in the year. Just to give you an overview of the citywide data, citywide, we're down 9% for the last 28-day period, but we're up 106% year to date. That spills over into what we're seeing here in the district as well. In District 5, we're down 16% for the last 28 days, but we're up 147% year to date. Colorado also claimed the unfortunate title of having the highest per capita auto theft rate in the country recently, as many of you may have seen on the news. Here in Central Park, we're seeing that for the 28-day period, Precinct 511, again, that's north of I-70, is down 24% for the last 28 days in auto theft, but we're still up 233% year to date. In Precinct 512, the area south of I-70, We're also seeing that we're down 24% for the last 28 days, but we're up 186% year to date. Now, we did make quite a few auto theft arrests in the last month, and some of that decrease could be attributable to that. We also have our detectives working on a couple of larger scale cases. It'll fall under COCA laws. That's the Colorado Organized Crime Control Act. For lack of a better definition, you could think of that as kind of like a RICO case for organized crime here at the Colorado level. So we do have some big players that have been identified that we're pursuing more serious organized crime prosecutions against, and hopefully that will continue to help our auto theft numbers here in the district. Some of the hot spots to be aware of for where we're seeing auto thefts, a lot of times around the hotels, the shops, and residences surrounding the Runway 35 Park, the Quebec shops, and surrounding area, and Central Park RTD. Those are areas where we've all seen kind of hot spots on auto theft. So far, only 16 of our auto thefts this year have been puffers. That's unattended vehicles that are left running, but those are easy ones to prevent just by turning off your vehicle and taking the keys with you. March was by far our highest month for auto theft, and we're hoping we continue to see the decline we've seen in the last month. Moving on from auto theft, just going to talk about theft of motor vehicle for a moment. One of the common things we see stolen in theft for motor vehicle cases are license plates. So 21% of our theft for motor vehicle cases involve license plates being stolen from vehicles. And the reason for that's probably kind of obvious. Criminals like to take your license plate. So if they're driving a stolen car or doing some crime, they have a plate that's not going to associate back to them. We do have special theft preventing license plate screws or tamper resistant screws that you can come over to the District 5 station and we'll help you install or give you some to install. They use a special bit that's not commonly available to folks. So the idea is if you put license plates on with those screws, it'll make it a lot harder for somebody to steal your license plate. And again, that's nearly a quarter of our theft for motor vehicle cases. We're seeing 13% of our theft for motor vehicle cases coming from unlocked vehicles. And one statistic I'd really like to see us avoid more of this year is we've had 21 firearms stolen from vehicles in theft for motor vehicle cases. I've said it before and I'll say it again, cars are just bad gun safes. If you have a gun, don't keep it in your car. It's really easy for criminals to get it. And they go looking for those kind of things in cars because they know they'll find them. And last year, I think we had something like 97 or so stolen from cars. So this is a continuing issue. But we are seeing that most of the theft from motor vehicle cases are coming from locked cars. Again, only 13% were unsecured. So just be aware that any valuables you leave in your vehicle can encourage somebody to break into your car. Another problem we're seeing throughout the district and across the region is catalytic converter thefts. In 2021 year to date, we had 116 catalytic converters stolen in District 5. So far in 2022, we've had 141 stolen. So we're continuing to see a rise on catalytic converter thefts. The vehicles that are most commonly being targeted are Honda CR-Vs, Honda Elements, Toyota 4Runners, Toyota Prius, and Ford vans and trucks. Some of those are being targeted just because the catalytic converters that are in those vehicles have more of the precious metals that make them valuable to thieves. In other cases, it's just because the vehicles are high profile and it's easy to get in and steal the catalytic converters from them. But if you have one of those vehicles, be aware of the fact that your vehicle could be targeted by criminals. Some of the things you can do to prevent those thefts, obviously parking in a garage or a well-lit, well-traveled area can help. We've also been encouraging folks to engrave VIN numbers onto their catalytic converters. What that does is aid us in the prosecution if your catalytic converter ever is stolen and we encounter a criminal in possession of that catalytic converter. It allows us to link it back to the crime and hopefully prosecute the offender. Unfortunately, without that measure, catalytic converters are generally unmarked with identifying information. So we may encounter somebody we suspect is a criminal who has a whole pile of catalytic converters in their trunk. And they tell us they got them legally and we can't prove otherwise, which means we don't have a prosecution and the person goes on and continues to steal them. You can also install catalytic converter protection devices. Those usually cost a couple $100, but you have to weigh that against the cost of a catalytic converter, which can be several $1,000s. Other options are things like alarms that you can put on your vehicle. I do want to mention we do have engraving kits available at the District 5 station. You can contact our community resource officers if this is something you feel like you would like to use. You can check out these kits from us and engrave your VIN number on your catalytic converter. Basically, we give you a kit with an engraver, some heat resistant spray paint you can put on there to make it bright and obvious, and some safety glasses. So if that's something you feel like you're up for, if you're the kind of person who changes the oil on your car, works on your vehicles, or feels comfortable getting under there using something like a Dremel, feel free to stop by the station and we'll loan you one of those so that you can mark your vehicle and hopefully deter that kind of theft. Do be aware that we've had some scams going around, particularly related to COVID-19 kind of stuff. We've also had cancer-related screening scams and other health-related scams. So just know that actual health officials don't give you free cancer screenings at grocery stores or by going door to door. If somebody shows up at your door and wants to swab your cheek, maybe it's a good idea to tell them no and not do that. But we have seen a rise in door-to-door scammers. If you have any doubts, it's generally best to send them on their way and call us if you think it's suspicious activity. Similarly, FBI agents don't go door-to-door asking for your social security cards, but we've had some scammers doing that recently. One thing I do want to touch on that hits near and dear to many of you right now is illegal street racing. I know it's a big problem throughout the district. It's also a problem throughout the city and the entire region. It's something that we're working on with Kayak, that's a Colorado Information Analysis Center. And we have a multi-jurisdictional working group that is working to address the street racing. We ran 8 operations so far in 2022, and that's on the back of a bunch of operations that we're also running in 2021. We're continuing to run operations throughout the year. Some of these are large multi-jurisdictional operations. Some of them are just operations using Denver police personnel. So far, we've arrested people for eluding. We've had reports on 10 eluding cases. In addition to those arrests, we've had 30 state level traffic offenses that we've arrested people for. Those are like criminal traffic violations, 17 municipal traffic violations, 6 municipal arrests. We've had 5 people for speed contests, and we've given out 8 warnings from those operations. So they are being productive on them, and we are discouraging folks. But as citizens, I would tell you that if you see street racing activity taking place, either call it into our dispatch center or go on to reportstreetracing.com. That's a website that is being managed by Kayak for the aid of all of us in dealing with street racing, so they can push that information out to our officers so that if you start to see gatherings taking place in the neighborhoods, you can let us know and we can get on top of that right away. I want to be mindful of the time here. I know Danae just wanted to let you know about a couple meetings we have real quick, and then if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take those. But Danae, did you want to give out the schedule on those meetings that you have coming up?
Yes. So good evening, everybody. Real quick, I just wanted to touch on Neighborhood Watch. I know we don't have a lot of time before I update on the meeting, but we do bi-monthly Neighborhood Watch meetings, and those are open to everybody in the community. I know many of you on this meeting now probably already attend the meeting, but we are really looking to increase those numbers, and it's a very low commitment program that Denver Police puts on. It's really organized by you guys in partnership with us, the Denver Police, and essentially the foundation of it is, you know, you guys are the eyes and ears of your neighborhood, and we want you guys and encourage you guys to report suspicious activity and things like that, and just really networking with one another and communicating this stuff to us so we can better serve you guys and get out there and take care of the issues before they arise to bigger issues. We will have a Neighborhood Watch coming up in June. I don't have a date yet for that, but when I do, I will send that out to everybody, make sure everybody has that. So some upcoming meetings, we do have the Commanders meeting. It's this Thursday at 6 p.m. and that will be at the Central Park Rec Center. We will also be doing a hybrid version of that as well. So we will have the online option via Microsoft Teams. So if you guys aren't able to make it, you can log on your phone and get the same information that way. But that will be this Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Park Rec Center. Like I said, Neighborhood Watch will be sometime beginning of June. I will pinpoint a date and location and get that information out for everybody to join. We have Fishing with the Cops coming up June 4th. That's going to be at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal, Lake Mary, same as last year. We provide all the fishing poles in the bay, and it's a really good time for the kids and their families to come out and catch some fish. That will be June 4th, 9 to 1 p.m. And then we have on June 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. our annual Safety Expo event. It's always at the Northfield Shopping Center right on Main Street. We have all the safety agencies. We have Denver Police, Denver Sheriff, Fire, DPS, Railroad Police. So that's always a lot of fun. So please come out to that. And I will send everybody flyers on all these events as well. So they have that.
Yeah, and I will add that Fishing with the Cops has been a fun event. You'll see a lot of us out there bringing our kids along too. It's a good time to kind of mingle with us and pretend we know how to catch fish. I didn't catch any last year, but my 3-year-old enjoyed running around with a pole with a hook on the end of it, which seemed really safe. So please join us at that if you can. I do want to be mindful of time here. I know I jammed through a lot of information there. I just want to add, if any of you do have any specific questions beyond the scale of this meeting, please feel free to reach out to Danae or myself and we'll try to get them answered. But if there's anything anybody wanted to ask right now, we'll try to answer it real quick. And otherwise, I'll turn it back to Geoff and you guys there at the Cube.
Hey, Lieutenant Hines, thank you very much. I'll relay questions from the audience here. Does anyone have any questions for Lieutenant Hines? Online as well, of course. All good. Okay, Lieutenant Hines, Officer Friends, thank you both so much for joining us this evening. Thank you.
We're happy to be here. Thank you very much for having us.
Great. All right, Diane, back live and in person for the presenting on the MCA.
Woo. And there went the cards. All right, if you need one, I do have cards, but I'll explain them at the end. So welcome to the Cube. We're excited to be hosting events once again, and we look forward to ongoing CPUN meetings in this space. So keep our fingers crossed. Just real quickly, a lot of you are aware that it's approaching summer, and we are busy hiring. We have rehired 100 staff from last year to help with the pools. And we have another 58 new hires that we are onboarding right now. So we're very excited. We will get to about 175 staff for our summertime hire program. And that takes our 12-person staff up a bit. So we are all getting used to having lots of people around again. It's very different from the past few years. So we're very anxious to get going again with both of our events and our pools and activities. We are offering swim lessons this year for all of those. I believe it's 5 and older. So those that could get vaccinated, offering the swim group classes. For those not vaccinated and younger than the 5-year age limit, those are private lessons are available. So we do have some lessons for those groups as well. Most important thing, make sure you get your membership card and that you have a current ActiveNet pass so that you can make reservations for Memorial Day weekend, which will be our soft opening on Memorial Day weekend. This is when because it's our first weekend, and folks, we have the youngest staff we've ever had coming up. So, well, last year we were really young. We had no one over the age of 18 as a pool manager last year. So it was a very trying time, but very exciting for all of us. So we do have a lot of those back. So they have had some experience in a very contained environment, and we're excited to have those back. But we do like to give them a little softer opening rather than opening the gates and flooding them with all kinds of people. So we will be doing 2 groups of times to book, and you can do that online at mca80238.com. That's our website. That's where all of our information is. So please access that for any information you need. But make sure you get your membership cards updated and make sure that they are good to go, because that is the key to getting reservations. And I believe our reservations open tomorrow. I think they open tomorrow. So just one thing, because we're now getting into the summer season, one of the issues we do have are little vandals that come out at night and like to throw like enormous flower pots into pools, or pool furniture into pools, or the trash dumpsters or recycle into pools. Please, please, if you are out there and you see somebody in a pool or a park that should not be there, like mischievous, hop the fence after 11 o'clock at night or something, please call the police. Do not call us, call the police. We have no trespassing on all the pools and parks after 11 o'clock. So anytime the pool is closed and you see something that looks a little mischievous, go ahead, call the police. We do have security out here, but they're informed to call the police as well. So that's our biggest push, is people will call our emergency number and it's not helpful. So call the police. They'll be out here just faster than any of us could ever make it. Real quickly, parks. There are park reservations are open this year. We are reserving our parks. There is a difference between a city and county of Denver park and the MCA managed and operated parks. The most of our parks are the pool parks. Those you reserve through the MCA website. Greenway Parkway, Central Park, you make reservations through the city and county of Denver for those parks. So just, you might go online and see, well, the park I want isn't on the MCA website. Probably it's because it belongs to the city and county of Denver. We have some newer parks on the north side that have not been turned over yet to the city and county of Denver for reservations. So you might contact them and they don't have it in their system yet. That's why they're still in the turnover process. It just has not occurred yet. But most of our parks have been turned over to the MCA. And one fun note that I know many people, we had quite a number of people respond to our pool naming contest. The filing 54 pool was named. We do have a selection and we will be announcing it soon. Amanda's back there like, oh man, but we'll be announcing that very soon. So we will, we want to do something fun for that. So we'll let you all know what's going on there. The Cube, this is the Cube. It is now open for reservations. If you have an event or a meeting or something, it is open for reservations. So you can stop in here and make those reservations or do it online. Basically, I tried to speed through what we've got going. Right now, we're trying to get, you know, it's amazing when you're dealing with facilities, what a 2-year hiatus causes with when you're trying to ramp them back up to full speed. So we're having some little slow process getting our fountains going again. There have been some issues that we've had to deal with. So those of you who are used to seeing the fountains going by May 1st, we are working on it, but we've had some things that, you know, we have to put in new pumps, we have to put in new electrical, and getting some of that product to do that is a bit of a challenge. broken pipes. We've had several broken pipes at pools. Again, the great thing, our community let us know that they saw lots of water coming out of one of our pools and contacted me and said, Diane, and I know her personally. So she said, Diane, there's tons of water coming out of a jet stream pool. We got over there, we had a busted pipe. So please just let us know when you see things, be our eyes, our ears. We can't be there all the time. Do I have any questions?
Yeah, one question on mine. Is the reservations for the pool all season or just opening?
Just for opening weekend, for that Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of opening weekend. And then we do it again on 4th of July. And then we do it again for Labor Day. So that was something that came out of the pandemic that we found really worked well, and we were able to serve more of our residents and more of our members than if we just opened it up and let it be one in, one out. So if we have blocks of time that people can reserve, we can get twice as many people in. So that's why we do it that way now. It was just a positive that came out of the pandemic that we decided we are going to continue to implement. Yeah, Amanda. Lap lanes will be open. The reservations for that, I think what we'll be doing, it's not going to be like we did it in the pandemic. It'll be more pre-pandemic for lap lanes. We will have lap lanes open for swim. We will also have the Masters Swim. So if you want to go to Masters Swim, we'll have that program up and running again this summer. Anything else? All right, great. Well, let's have a wonderful summer.
Thank you, Diane.
You bet.
Hey, Diane,
Yes.
another question. Are there any plans to remodel any older pools?
Are there any plans to remodel older pools in the future? No. What we are doing, we do, we just don't have any plans at this time because everything is functioning for us really well. We do go in and we do replaster, we do the needed maintenance, but no plans for any major remodel of any kind at this time. All right.
No other questions?
Thanks, Diane. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about fire risk and mitigation in Central Park, and Jack Seward, CPUN board members, going to help us out with that. Let me just make sure.
Clicking my buttons.
Mark's clicking your buttons. So let me just make sure. Yep, you should be all set, but yeah, Mark will be there for you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If we haven't met, I'm Jack Seward. I chair the Health and Safety Committee for CPUN. I'm also the Community Services Coordinator here at the MCA. So wear a couple of different hats around here. I like to say if it's green and bush-like, I like to think I'm in charge of it. If it's a crime or a fire, you should call someone else, although people like to call me about those things. Mark, if you give me my first slide here. So we're going to talk a little bit about wildfire. I'm sure we all heard about the Marshall Fire up in Boulder that happened late December, early January. And there's been a lot of concern the last few months about, our neighborhood. We have our 1,400 acres of open space, and there's rightfully so a concern about could my house burn down, could my neighborhood burn down. And so just thinking about the basics of a wildfire, right? You need three things, and this is just for any fire anywhere. You need weather, topography, and fuel. The weather is hard to control. I wish I could control the weather, but unfortunately, I don't have those powers. Topography, now that's expensive, but you can control that. It involves moving a lot of dirt. But the easiest thing to control is your fuel. If there is nothing to burn, then nothing's going to burn. So 90% of fires are human caused, and wildland fires can occur anywhere there is grass, brush, trees, or other fuel. So if you walk down any street in this neighborhood, you will see grass, trees, and other wildland fuels. Weather factors also play an increasingly major part in any one of these fires. Mark, can I have the next slide, please? So we like to think about what is good landscaping and what is maybe not so good landscaping. The picture on the right-hand side of your screen is maybe not so good landscaping. This property, if it was on fire, the fire department would just let it burn because they're not going to risk their personnel and their assets trying to put a fire out there because it is not in a condition that is defensible. You can't save that, and the risk of to the firefighters is too severe, so they would just let that burn. Now, the picture you see on the left is kind of what we're thinking about when we talk about defensible spaces. We want to talk about, trees being pruned up off the ground. There not being a lot of vegetation around your trees, right? We want to reduce those fuels. We like our trees, we like our landscaping. We just want to make sure that they're well maintained and well taken care of landscaping. Mark, I'll take the next slide, please. So this is a map of the Central Park community. It is a small map because we are a big community. Everything that is in green on that map is a park or an open space. The light green is land that is administered by Denver's Department of Parks and Recreation. The dark green is land that is administered by the Master Community Association on behalf of the Park Creek Metropolitan District. So that's all 1,400 acres of open space that we have in this neighborhood. What do you see a lot of? We have a lot of open space. And that creates a challenge when we think about creating a defensible space around your home. If I could have the next slide, please, Mark. So what we want to do is when we built the neighborhood, we've been very thoughtful about reducing the risk. Now, this is reducing the risk. It's impossible to completely eliminate the risk of wildfire, but we can do our best to reduce the risk. And what we do that, how we do that is we've been very strategic about where we place homes and residential the residential parts of the neighborhood. They don't directly abut an open space. So there will be, we have lots of parks, but there's never a house that's right up. I shouldn't say never. There are very few occasions are there houses that are right up against the park. There is usually, not always, but usually a street that is between that open space and then the residential homes. That's one of the things that makes us a little bit different than the neighborhoods that burned up in Boulder is they directly abutted an open space. So a fire got going in the open space and then very easily was able to impact those residential homes. Here we have a street. The fire, not saying it's impossible, but it slows it down a little bit. And when we're talking about fire, you want every advantage you get. So if you have a street in the way, that's going to make it just one more thing that the fire would have to then jump over to have an impact. We also make our streets a little bit wider. Your normal street is about 20 feet across. You have a single pass lane through the middle and then parking lanes on either side. We make the streets that abut our open space, we make them wider. They're more like 40 feet across. That's 2 drive lanes in either direction and then a parking lane on either side of the street. We also create those natural fire blocks in our wetlands. So we have a lot of what I like to call marshes, which in a normal moist year will be full of water. In drier years like we're living in now, they are mostly concrete pits that are designed for our flood control and drainage. So when it rains and the rain goes down in the storm sewer, then our parks are designed to act as those retention bays. And we like to keep some level of water in those parks to act as that natural fire break. So you'll never see us draining any of those completely. We like some level of moisture to remain in them. And then if there isn't a level of moisture when we get down into July, August, when we really get dry, then the concrete there also acts as a good fire block because it's really hard to burn concrete. We also talk about maintenance. Maintaining, we like grass, we like green grass. We don't like yellow grass and we don't like tall grass. We like nice manicured grass because manicured grass doesn't burn like dead tall grass does. That is an important part about what we do. You need to maintain all of our landscaping. Could I have the next slide, please, Mark? So I was talking about defensible spaces just a moment ago, and that is kind of our best bet when we think about trying to protect your home from a wildfire. And so what is really key about this defensible space is that 100 feet from your home is really where we start. And we look at our homes in terms of, perimeters. If you're out in the woods, this is probably a little bit different than here in the city and county of Denver. But right up against your home, you don't want to have dense vegetation. You can have some vegetation, but you don't want to have dense vegetation. Why? Because the closer you get to your home, easier it is to burn your home. So if you have grass that runs right up next to your home, then if there were a fire, that grass is going to then catch the side of your house on fire. If you have grass and then you have some rock, it's going to make catching your home on fire a lot more difficult because that rock creates a natural fire break. You can have vegetation in that rock, small trees, maybe some bushes, but you don't want to have grass directly abutting up against your home. Why? Because you want that natural fire break, that defensible space. You want to make sure that you clean out your gutters and your decks of dead leaves and pine needles. I don't know if we have a whole lot of pine needles in this neighborhood, but definitely your dead leaves, anything that might be in your gutters. Why? Because if there's a fire and it's windy, you want to eliminate those fuels. That's really the thought process that we bring here to defensible space. Eliminate the fuels where possible, and where not possible, mitigate the fuels. So right, the landscaping surrounding your home, 100 feet, we want it lean, clean, and green, right? You want it cut, you want it maintained, and you want it green. Dead grass is bad because dead grass burns. Alive grass is good because alive grass is harder to burn. I'm not going to say it doesn't burn, because it does burn, but it's much harder to burn. And we want to make sure we use buildings and yard materials that won't burn easily. So all of the homes here in Central Park were designed according to those internationally accepted fire codes. So from that point of view, neighborhood is less than 20 years old in some places. About 20 years old in its oldest parts. So we're not concerned with the really old homes that might have some of those less fire safe type materials. Most of our homes and properties here are built that way. I'll take the next slide, please, Mark. Same types of suggestions that we give with a commercial space, an office space, right? You want it lean, clean, and green. You want to maintain those properties. You want to plant vegetations with high moisture content around your buildings, and only use non-flammable materials like rock around vegetations, and keep anything that can burn at least 5 feet away from your buildings to create that defensible space. My next slide, please, Mark. We also want to sign up. We also encourage you to sign up for emergency alert notifications. You can visit the Denver Office of Emergency Management to learn more about how to sign up. There are 2 different types of notifications that the city uses. The first is their opt-in system. For instance, I live over by Aviator Pool, and so I have opted into the emergency alert system. I've given them my address. So if there is an incident, be it fire, be it some sort of emergency incident, maybe a tornado, or their website says earthquake, but I've never heard of an earthquake in Denver. Not saying that doesn't happen, but I've never heard one of those. They can say, anybody that's in this area, they can pick out those specific addresses. The way the city's dispatch system works is it's all based on your physical address. So the building we're in right now, the address is 8371 Northfield Boulevard. So if there was something going on around this area, they could pull out 8371 Northfield Boulevard and say, I registered my phone as living at 8371 Northfield Boulevard. Then if there's an incident taking place around this area, they would be able to send me an alert to my phone. So if I'm not at home, I'd still get that alert. Whereas the reverse 911 call system, or the WAN, the wireless emergency networks process, they essentially take a map and they draw a circle or a grid in that map, and anybody whose cell phone pings in that geographic area is going to receive the note. The alert. So let's say I'm not at home, but my home is being evacuated. If I'm not in that area, I'm not getting that alert that my home is being evacuated because my cell phone isn't pinging off those towers. So while that's important, and that's the way they're going to push out information, hey, evacuate, leave the area, you also want to make sure you're signing up for those alerts so that you're getting them if you're not around your home. I have the next alert, please. Not alert, slide. Now we talk about preparation. We talk about having a plan. What if your cell phone doesn't work? Where do you want to meet your family? And maybe having an out-of-state contact, right? If all of my family is here in Denver, what if none of the cell phones work here in Denver? What's the plan for somebody out of state to be able to contact you? You want to make sure you have the appropriate insurance on your house. We've found that not everybody's insured for a wildfire, especially in our urban areas. But if there is a big wildfire like the Marshall Fire had, are you covered for that type of situation? You want to also be prepared to evacuate with a go kit in your emergency supplies. And you want to follow your local authorities. Here, that's the Denver Fire Department and Denver Emergency Management. Next slide, please. And then you want to make a disaster plan. So with your family, discuss how to prepare and respond to the types of emergencies that are most likely to happen where you live. Here in Colorado, those are fires and tornadoes and floods. You want to identify responsibilities for each member of your household and how you'll work together as a team. And then you want to practice as many elements of your plan as possible. My next slide, please, Mark. American Red Cross has a 1, 2, 3 process that they like to talk about called Get a Kit, Make a Plan, and Be Informed. I'd encourage you to check that information out. You can visit that at redcross.org is where they have that information. But a lot of it is, right, learning about the essential things you need and building a family survival kit, making a plan, and then keeping tabs on what's happening around you. You know, steps 1, 2, and 3 there. Our next slide, Mark. Then the Red Cross also has put together, you know, what they call being wildfire ready. So being ready to evacuate quickly, plan to stay connected, learning your emergency skills, understanding your health impacts, gathering your emergency supplies in advance, and creating those defensible spaces. And I think this, there's a lot of content on this slide, and I think we're going to post those slides. Yes, so that folks can maybe look at that more. You can find all this information on the Red Cross's website, redcross.org. I want to / wildfires, but I will make sure that everybody gets the exact URL. And our next slide, Mark. That's really small. I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to work that way. You probably can't read that, but those are all the things that are supposed to be in your emergency kit. I can't even read it on my screen here. So we'll just move on to the next one and we'll come back. You can take a look at that. And then the Denver Fire Department likes to talk about what they call being ready, set to go. And that's again about your planning, being ready, and then acting. And a huge part is our collaboration, right? There's no one entity that is completely responsible for your wildfires. The Denver Fire Department is the one who's going to show up to put out that fire. But the Denver Fire Department will be the first to tell you that they don't manage land. That you have to turn to your land managers, be that the Denver Parks and Recreation, the National Wildlife Refuge. We have the Rocky Mountain Arsenal to our north, us here at the MCA. And then we have our utilities like Xcel Energy. And then the state and their nonprofit partners also all have a role to play, and it's a collaborative effort. My next slide, please, Mark. So we've also heard a lot of concern about the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge. That's a map of the arsenal there on the screen. The next slide, Mark. They are very intentional about their fuels management, their wildfire preparedness. This is their prescribed burn map for this year. So they're at the very bottom of the screen. You see the neighborhood, and then you see the different what they call wildfire management areas. And those are specific areas that they have concluded their prescribed burning for the year. But each one of those red boxes, I guess it's not a box, but shapes there was burned at some point this year. And that's part of their fuels reduction effort. I've spoken with them on a couple of occasions now. They are very interested in being good neighbors, maintaining their land. And every 3 to 5 years, they will burn that entire property to reduce those fuels. So every part of that property, with the exception of the buildings, they don't want to burn their buildings. That's probably not a good idea, but all of that wildland area will get burned once every 3 to 5 years. Contacts to keep in mind: Denver Fire Department, that's their phone number, Parks and Recreation, Xcel Energy, the Wildlife Refuge, and then us here at the MCA, we all manage land, maintain land, or have some sort of collaboration there. And we're going to post these slides so you have those phone numbers as well. Anybody have questions? I don't know if I made a question slide. Was I smart enough to do that? No, but I did post resources so you can click on those links. Yes.
Thanks for articulating the Arsenal's proactive measures. Can you articulate for the group here what Denver Parks and Rec and or Bluff Lake, what their position is on?
Yeah, so Denver Parks and Rec has communicated with me. I spoke with them last week, and they are confident that the current land, that all of their lands are in a position where no additional mitigation is necessary. So they say they have a regular plan to mow them. They have they don't do any type of specific wildfire mitigation, but they believe that the parks here in the neighborhood are in a place that meet the expectations for wildfire mitigation. That's their stance. I know there have been, in the last couple of months, there have been 4 separate fire incidents in Denver parks. They were all put out in less than an hour. The fire department was there in less than 5 minutes. The fires were able to be put out in less than an hour. So from their perspective, they have said that they believe that our parks here in the neighborhood are appropriately managed to reduce the wildfire risk. Was there another? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for the other entities like MCA, like, do you all have sort of a plan for how you manage? I mean, obviously it's a little different, but like how you landscaping to reduce the chance of fuel, just in case something were to happen on MCA managed property?
Do you want me to answer that question or you want to answer that question? Okay, I mean, we do a lot of mowing. We like to, you know, all of our natural areas will get mowed. We like to keep it lean, green, and there was another one there. Yes, lean, green, and clean there is, right? It's just about maintenance, right? Green grass is better than dead grass. And so that's really what we do.
My other question is, I love the slide you had about proactive measures that we can all take with our houses and homes and stuff. We should definitely spread that far and wide. Do you ever see like a role, either for the fire department or MCA or someone, just like, if someone looks like maybe they have too much of the wrong type of landscaping or sort of fuels on their own property?
So the city has a fire code, and the fire code, I have taken a look at that, and there are some components about what they call an innate fire risk. So like the slide I showed at the beginning of the presentation, in those types of situations, you could make a report to the city, and they would send a fire inspector out to take a look at that. And then if they determined that that particular portion of the city code was being violated, they would take the appropriate corrective action. Community planning and development at the city also has some standards for kind of minimum basic property upkeep, as do we at the MCA. It's minimum basic property upkeep, right? It needs to not be dead. It needs to be alive. It needs to be cut, right? You don't have to have grass, but you can't just have dead grass. You can't have dirt, those types of things. But again, they're the minimum basic standards. By far are they the gold standard. Carol.
I was just researching about landscaping, and it's recommended that you not put bark around trees.
Yes.
And especially what they call volcano, where a lot of times folks do bark up the tree, and that actually is not just a bad thing for fire, but it also can kill the tree on its own if it's feathered. So, excuse me, removing bark has been suggested.
Yeah, again, those are those fuels.
Repeat that just so the people.
Yeah, so Carol's comment was that there has been some recommendations that perhaps not putting bark around trees makes a difference, because again, that's a fuel. You want to reduce those fuels where possible, particularly the bark, being that volcano format around the trees was the comment she was making there. Yep, bark is a fuel. I don't know your name, sir. I'm sorry. Jim, yes. Yes, sir.
Do you have any relationship with the builders as far as what they're supposed to be putting around the houses? A good list and a bad list? Because my house is 6 years old and it is completely in violation of what you're talking about.
Yes. I don't have a connection with the builders.
Should there be?
I think that we are at a point where we've almost finished building the neighborhood, so that ship might have sailed, but I think that is communication we can engage in with them to see what actions we can take moving forward.
We do have some development representatives here tonight, so maybe they can have the thought about that.
The other question, how bad are the fences, all the wooden fences that we have in the neighborhood?
I asked the fire department about that, and they weren't that concerned about the wooden fences. That I'm not a firefighter, so I will take their word for it when they say they're not concerned. I don't know if that really answered your question, but that's what they told me. Gina.
Will any of this be published in our newsletter as a reminder?
Yeah, and Gina's question there is, are we going to publish this information in our newsletter? And yes, that is a plan that we will do. I will work with Mark and the communications folks to make sure we publish that information. Brian, do we have anyone online with questions? No questions online. Then I will be done talking. Thanks, everybody. If you want to get a hold of me,
Excuse me, I'm online and I have a question.
Oh, then let's hear your question.
Thank you. I actually have two questions. My first question is that I have noticed, I live in the Beeler Park neighborhood, and I've noticed that watering in the open spaces occurs oftentimes at like 10:30 to 11:30, which seems inconsistent with what city recommendations are to conserve water and to be most effective, which is early in the morning, late in the evening. So I'd like some, commentary on that. And then also, has the association ever thought of to encourage homeowners to go with more xeriscaping and to remove grass and mulch and replace with rock, if there could potentially be a future discount on association fees.
So I'll answer the first question and then I'll defer to Diane on the second question. To the first question, we are in the early portion of the growing season. The early portion of the growing season will end at the end of May. During the early portion of the growing season, the watering recommendations are different than in the height of the growing season. So I anticipate that's why you're seeing the watering during those times. Once we move into June, July, August, and September, that's the height of the growing season. And that's when those recommendations to early in the morning and late at night take effect. And then I'll let Diane speak to that second part of your question.
It was.
Xeriscaping.
Thank you. As far as xeriscaping, basically our association dues are set up based on our current budget, which does not have anything to do with a person's home's landscaping. So I cannot see that fees would go down with encouraging that, but I do think we can do an encouraging word in our e-blast on our website and ideas for encouraging people to do landscaping and to do xeriscaping of any kind. One issue though is in the parkway. So that would be the parking area, which is between the curb and the sidewalk. That is the right of way of the city. And anything someone plants in there, whether they tear up the grass and put down rock or put down some fabulous landscaping, that space only has to be returned to sod at this time. So if somebody goes to the trouble of tearing their sod out, if the city has to access that area, it will not be replaced as they re-landscaped it, FYI. Yes.
I just wanted to, it's not the HOA piece, but there's a bill that just passed in the state legislature for a turf replacement program to provide financial incentives and rebates for folks to replace turf. So it passed, it hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but I think the bill is to set up, like it's signed, the state will set up a program that then would be, you know, for municipal governments to access those funds, I guess, to have.
Great. So what we're hearing from the audience here is that there is a bill that has passed, has not yet been signed by the governor, but that might provide some funding for people to replace sod with water-wise landscaping. Thank you. So we'll stay on top of that and we'll get information. Great. Yeah, there you go. Call the governor and tell him to sign it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Okay, so next up we have development. This happens every year, but we're about 10 minutes behind schedule. So if you're next to speak, we're happy to have you here. We want you to use all your time, but do try to be mindful of like creeping over, getting a little further behind schedule. So the first person that we'll hear from is Kelly Pretzer, who's from Brookfield. Yeah, you're welcome to come on up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Geoff. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, it's really nerve-wracking because I am brand new to Denver. I haven't moved yet. I still live in California. I've worked at Brookfield for the last 3 years. And before that, I was at Forest City working on our San Francisco project for 7 years before that. So a long time in the development world and a long time with Brookfield, but brand new to Denver. You might recall a gentleman named Jim Chrisman, who's attended these meetings in the past, and he has some really big shoes to fill, but lucky for me, he's not going far. He's sticking around and will be working not as a full-time employee with Brookfield, but will still be involved with Central Park and some of the remaining activities that we have out here as we wrap up the project. So I did just want to give you a little bit of that background around me and a preemptive apology that I probably will not be able to answer all of your questions on the spot, but I absolutely commit to you that I will write them down, get your name and get you the answer. And it will be a good learning process for me. So I really look forward to all of the questions that I am going to get and will get answers for. But I did want to give you an update about 2 development projects that we do have in the works to get on your radar. Both of those are apartment projects. Kind of confusing. We're all Brookfield, but there are sort of different parts of Brookfield. So I work in the former Forest City group. So we were the, 25 years ago, the ones who started working on kind of the master developer for Central Park. But I'm not the group that does the home building side. That's a different group within Brookfield. But we work really closely together, obviously. And so just wanted to make that distinction clear. And so you aren't like, what is this woman doing here? She can't even answer questions about her own company. That is a different part. But again, we'll get you answers one way or the other. So what I do work on though are apartment buildings and for rent buildings, and that we have 2 projects that are in the planning stages at Central Park that I wanted to tell you about. The first one is north of I-70. And is, if you're familiar, it's funny, see, I only know the internal, it doesn't have a big splashy name yet. So it's like a very parcel 2F and nobody cares about that. But it's located right at the intersection of Willow and 46th Place, runs down the middle of it, if you're familiar. So it's just a little bit of a ways from here. So that project is, so helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I can kind of, generally, right, in the vicinity. Oh, sorry. Oh, goodness. Okay. Gosh, I'm really not doing a great job. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. So as I said, at Willow and 46th Place, kind of running down the middle of those, probably easy to recognize because there aren't that many empty parcels these days around Central Park. So in total, that project is about 280 apartment units, and around 60% of those are 1 bedrooms and around 40% of those are 2 bedrooms. That project is the more advanced of the 2. It's currently with the planning department for its review, and hopefully we'll be starting construction later in 2022. The second project that I wanted to tell you about is just south of I-70, right next to the Central Park light rail station. So this conveniently referred to in our internal parlance as the TOD sites. So that's much bigger. That's about 3 parcels. They're right around the FBI building. And for that project, it's a total of about 420 apartments, and then 160 townhomes that are for rent as well across those 3 parcels. And the cross streets there are Ulster and East 36th Avenue. And the hope is to start construction there in 2023. So similarly with the planning department for review, but at a much earlier stage, we're just getting concept review done there. So those are the 2 big projects that we're working on in our office, and hopefully we'll start construction later this year and then into next year that I wanted to make sure to bring up to all of you. Yes, ma'am.
So with the apartments that you're starting on, you're planning now, how many are they all market rate or are any of them affordable housing?
Great question. So both of those projects that I had talked about, those are both market rate projects, but we do have an affordable housing commitment and requirement at Central Park. And so it's a kind of a one before the other. So we've got the market rate, so we know how many market rate units there are, and that tells us what percentage of those have to be provided as affordable, how many affordable units we'd have to provide to meet those obligations. So there are still some remaining sites around, and this is one area where I might have to get back to you for more specifics on it, but there are still some sites that have either already been turned over to affordable housing developers or will be turned over very soon to build those required affordable housing units as well.
Are they going to be below AMI, the 80% AMI, or are they going to be between 30 and 60?
I am going to get back to you on that question. Okay, so 80% or the 30 per 60 or 30 to 60%. Got it. Okay. Any other
So
questions?
this might be an unfair question, but what can you tell us
I'm ready.
about the TOD site more broadly? beyond just those two apartment complexes.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of anticipation about what's the mixed use, what's the commercial, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I will tell you all that I know and then can get back to you. But there is one building that is already under construction there. They built just a concrete kind of level. So you've seen like the first or second story, but that will ultimately be a 6-story building. Trammell Crow is the developer there. And then there's another similarly sized building that will also be built on that particular block. So there is an element of mixed use retail that's happening there. There's also a really beautiful, I'm totally biased, but there's a really beautiful plaza that will be built kind of in front of that building. And then also kind of it bridges the street sort of right by where the station is. And forgive me, I think that is Uinta, right?
Mhm, that sounds right.
I went there on my walk this morning. I stayed at the Renaissance Central Park. And so I was going all over, walking. So I was walking up and down. And so then on the other side of that, that's where this TOD project that Brookfield is working on as well. And I think that there will be a small amount of retail, right? They're probably like the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot range. But so the idea is that you'll have a little bit of retail on either side there, closer to the light rail station is at least the plan. And I'm probably in unsafe territory and I don't want to speak for Trammell. Their plans may have changed, but that's what I understand is going on there.
And is there a timeline that all of that would be completed on?
Well, I know that the plaza is actually under or will be starting construction very soon to be finished this year.
Okay.
So that's coming very soon. And then just by looking at the construction that's already underway, I'd guess that would probably deliver in 2024, just given the size of the building.
Okay, so right before Jim left, I was talking about, we get a lot of complaints. I know this is nothing you can respond to right away, but just something to think about. At 35th and Uinta, so right kind of where there's the Sprouts grocery store and the
Yep.
development happening around there.
Yep.
I know there's plans and it's in the developer's hands around putting in a signal there. We've had, I think, a couple of horrific just car accidents,
Oh, gosh.
pedestrian car accidents in the area because there's just nobody's stopping, and it's really tough to make it's kind of a blind turn
Yeah.
out of there and stuff. If you go by it, you'll understand.
Yeah.
But last I heard from Dottie is that there were some like kind of lead time delays in terms of getting the supplies after I should build that. But if you could maybe send us
Ask
an
around.
update, because I know some people still asking
Yeah.
about that now, about when is that intersection going to get safer for folks, sort of both the cross traffic
Absolutely.
and people getting in and out, too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Definitely look into it.
Do you mind just repeating for the?
Oh, so sorry. So sorry about that.
The summary of that.
Yes. The summary of that is that I will follow up and look into the intersection of 35th and Uinta has been a problem and looking to get a signal there. And so kind of getting an update on what is the status with Dottie and others. Get it right? Okay, great. Sorry, I'm looking at the computer like people can see me, but. Yes, sir.
With all that, there's living going on in that area you was talking about, what are they doing about parking and what is your ratio with person to car parking? in that
Yes.
area?
Yes, so those projects will include parking spaces as well as part of the projects. They all are kind of the setup where you have buildings and then some tuck under garages and then also some surface parking kind of in the middle of the donut, if you will. So that's the sort of building type or the design. I'm going to say this and it could be wrong and I will follow up with you if it is, but I believe that the parking ratio is 1.25 parking spaces for every housing unit that's built. So every unit has a parking space and then for every 4 units you have an extra one. So 5 parking spaces total is the ratio there.
You're not doing it wrong. You're building 90 units with 90 parking spots. That's a 1-to-1 ratio.
At a project over here.
Yeah, Central and.
Okay, that is not one that I'm working on, so I can't comment on it one way or the other. But I can say with like 72% certainty that 1.25 is the ratio, but if it's not, I will get back to you. Yes, ma'am.
So how many handicap parking spaces will that allow?
Okay, total count of disabled parking. I will look into that. I don't know that. I know that is like a stat, there's a ratio that you have to provide, but I don't know what it is offhand, but I will find it out.
That's part of my job.
No, that's a great question.
And will there be handicap accessible for those apartment units, including the electric doors? Because I work for fair housing. And one of the things I found is in the newer buildings, they are not, even though it's handicap accessible, they're not putting in the electric doors for the people who are in wheelchairs. And they're not obligated to do so.
Got it. So that's not a code requirement.
It's not a code requirement.
I
but
see.
I'm hoping so, because
Interesting.
I'm running into a lot of problems with getting, I found a company who's willing to go to those apartment units and pay for putting those in. But
Interesting.
I'm hoping that moving forward, they will be putting those in
I
until
see.
we can get that law passed.
Got it. Got it. And for the folks on virtually, the point was about, in addition to having disabled parking spaces, if there's also thinking about electric door openers and kind of the path of travel. Once you park, how do you get into the building? So I will definitely, I was going to say that with 100% certainty, we are meeting the building code. But if this is not a part of the current work code, that is something that I will have to look into.
There's one question on mine.
Yes.
What are the current affordability goals that you guys are working towards in the combination of passing affordable off and as a percent of units?
Okay, so kind of what is the affordable requirement at Central Park? Okay, this is, all right, so I believe, and this is embarrassing that I don't know this off the top of my head, but if I recall correctly, I believe it is 20%. That is for every total, but in different, sorry, am I doing that? And that's right. So the 20% is for rent, if I recall correctly. But I will definitely get back on that. And I'm embarrassed that I don't have that off the top of my head. But I believe that was the question, which is what is the overall requirement there?
And then is there do you have any current updates on how the neighborhood rules are relative to the for sale and for rent?
I don't have updated statistics on that, but I can absolutely, rather than guess wrong, I will look into that and report back. Now, that is one of those things where it's kind of in arrears, sort of, as we were saying, you figure out how many total market rate units you build, and that tells you how many total affordable buildings you need, or affordable units need to be built. So there's a little bit of they don't perfectly stay in line one to the other, especially because they're in different buildings as well. But I will get the overall status of things, and we'll definitely report that out. I believe that goes back to the original development agreement and the way that there was dedicated land that was provided for free, but I could be totally.
Yeah, the history is Brookfield doesn't give affordable, they give the land.
Exactly.
To the other developers.
Exactly.
So do you guys have any relationship with Dottie in terms of traffic mitigation? I think about Central Park Boulevard specifically, with all the development that's going on, TOD and farther south. Is that something that you have communications with them about?
I don't think that we do much anymore. It's kind of,
it
is their street, or it is. But I'm happy to, especially because I'll be asking about Dottie on the signal anyway. I will also ask about Central Park Boulevard and see if there's any ongoing coordination that's happening. Happy to do that.
Central Park, especially at Central Park. It's just terrible. Traffic accidents, codes inside the intersection there. It's crazy. And so any building that goes on close to that. Much more dangerous.
Yeah. So that's it.
If anybody here disagrees, please raise.
What did you say, sorry?
Well, Central Park Boulevard, but especially with Central Park Boulevard and MLK, when it made it kind of confusing to understand how to make a left turn if you're not really familiar with it and things like that. And so any building that goes on anywhere within a half mile of that, I think that's a substantial
you know, in the last bond measure that passed last year, they earmarked some money for a Vision Zero study and changes at that intersection. But the last update I got is it hasn't made the most current round of funding.
We might need to move it along. Yeah.
That's fine,
Sorry.
yeah.
Thank you
No, thank you,
so
Kelly.
much. I appreciate your patience. as
No,
well.
no,
Thank
that's
you.
great. Thanks, Kelly. All right. Do we have Tyler here with us? He disappeared? Uh-oh. Was he here in the big room? Oh, I didn't see him. Tyler, are you here on the call? I'm looking for Tyler Carlson from Evergreen. Are there any Evergreen representatives? We might have just made up our time gap here. All right. Oh, maybe I think we'll just move on then. If anyone online happens to see Tyler pop on, do let me know. And we will move on to DPS and Karen. Is Karen with us? Oops. Hi, Karen. Okay, great. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
I'm going to mute my computer here, but you're on and you sound very clear.
Okay. Can you let me share my screen? That work?
Yes, 1 second.
Sounds good. Okay. What are you seeing?
Karen,
Okay.
we see the DPS District Accountability Committee slide.
Fabulous. Okay, fabulous. So that's what you're seeing. Okay. When I have two monitors, I'm never quite sure. So, okay, I'll go ahead and get started if that's okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting. My name is Karen Mortimer, and I'm the chair of the DPS District Accountability Committee, which is also known as the DAC. So in our time together, I'm going to share a little bit just about my background, a description of what is the DAC, what does the DAC do, what is the DAC's in the DAC's future, what maybe are some today's DPS issues, and then issues in your own community. So as far as who am I? First and foremost, I am a mom of 2 DPS students. My daughter Brianna is a senior at East, and my son Gabriel is a freshman at Manual. Yes, I'm the parent of teenagers. So if you look close, you can see the extra worry lines. Like many of you, my husband and I, we struggle as parents. Our daughter is mostly fine, although we still do not have 100% certainty which version of her is going to walk down the stairs each morning. But our son really struggles with school. He struggles with motivation, not turning in work, and we're at a loss to know how to be the parents he needs right now. So all this to say, I'm a parent who decided a while back that I wanted to know what was going on in DPS and then play a role in trying to help it to serve its families better. So as far as my professional background, I started my career as an elementary music teacher, and then I taught English in China. And I've been in administrative roles since then. And I presently work for a local nonprofit called Social Venture Partners Denver, which connects professionals with local nonprofits. My husband, Greg, is also in the education biz. He works in IT at Adams 12th School District. So as far as my volunteer experiences within the education sphere, I've been a PTA president. I was education chair of WNA. I volunteered alongside other parents with Together Colorado, where I was usually the only gringa in the room. I volunteered on the Reimagining the SPF committee, and SPF stands for School Performance Framework, which is DPS's school accountability system. I helped write the recommendations for that group. I was on the superintendent's transition advisory team in the operations arena, and I'm helping to lead a grassroots effort right now to continue the work of the Reimagining the SPF committee, researching best practices in school accountability nationwide. Ping me if you'd like to join in that work, and I'll post my email at the end of this conversation. And then I was elected the chair of the district accountability last October, and this fall will be my 8th year on the DAC. So what is the DAC? So the DAC is like a school accountability committee at the school level for what DPS calls collaborative school committees, or CSCs, but it's at the district level. So by state statute, our primary relationship is supposed to be with the board and not with the district. So we hover around 30 volunteer members who are mostly parents, along with some school-based staff and community members. And the DAC is a home for community members who relish diving into education policy and practices. And we're really excited this past round of applications. We had 100 applications for about 23 open spots. And the DAC is a public body. Our meetings are open to the public and minutes are taken and posted on our webpage, which is on the board website. Members of the public are welcome to attend and they can make comments at the beginning, but are not allowed to participate in discussions during the meeting. We've been meeting just by Zoom this year, and honestly, we haven't been doing a good job at posting the links. So the DAC does get involved in some localized issues, but deals mainly, the DAC does not get involved with localized issues. We deal with system-wide issues. So it's not a place where people come to talk about or raise just concerns that are just at a local level. So what do we do as the DAC? So we're an advisory body for the district. So the DAC has influence, but we don't hold any power per se. But we continue to consider the A in our name, District Accountability Committee, to mean that raising concerns and advocating for DPS to do the right thing should be a part of our work. So by district policy and state policy, we advise the district using subcommittees. So we have a budget subcommittee. We help the district to work on its unified improvement plan. We provide advice. We advise the district on charter school applications and renewals. And we advise the district on family and community engagement. We're also supposed to be working with DPS on their safe schools plans and discipline policies and work with school accountability committees, but that hasn't been happening. So during our meetings, we meet monthly and we hear from different DPS departments. We get an update from them and then we pepper them with questions. And then we also engage in other DPS issues as they arise. So we'll chime in when we feel like the DAC wants to speak to a certain issue. So some of the past issues we chimed in on was supporting the teachers during the teacher strike. We supported the Reimagining the SPF committee recommendations. And then a big thing for us this past year is in December, we put out a survey to school-based staff. And we were just overwhelmed by the response from our educators. So much so that we decided to publish publicly their redacted responses to let the words of these 600 teachers and staff speak for themselves. And we tried to raise awareness throughout the community about the challenges that our educators are facing in schools. So about the DAC and next school year. So by state statute, the DAC is supposed to have a relationship with the school accountability committees, the CSCs at schools, but this has never been pursued. So that's something we want to do. So part of the challenge is that DPS literally doesn't know who is on each school's CSC. But DPS is working on getting more information like this. So when we meet in the fall, we're going to work on developing lines of communication with parent leaders on each CSC. So that will include the SACs that are in Central Park. And beyond that, I really don't know where the DAC will focus because that's not my decision. It's decided by the DAC members themselves. But our ultimate goal as the DAC is to be the go-to group for DPS. So when DPS is facing a decision or they need input by reflex, they'll say, let's ask the DAC. So what's on my mind about today's DPS? Well, you know, there's nothing controversial about today's DPS. Yeah, okay, but I do need to add a caveat. These statements below are going to reflect my own personal perspective, so I'm not speaking for the whole DAC. And I recognize that if you're not in the education space, a lot of what I'm going to be saying is like speaking Greek, but I just, you can bear with me as I just share what's on my mind. So a big thing on my mind, I'm thinking about Healthy Start Times initiative. I'm really concerned about its impact on families, and I'm still advocating for it to be scrapped or at least delayed. The district organization, how are things going to play out when all the people being let go, especially those with years of institutional knowledge, are not there anymore? But within this realm, with the district reorg, I'm really excited about the concept of the community hubs that the district plans to create. I'm also thinking about the declining enrollment situation and how the district hasn't really made its case yet with the community that the district's only solution is to close or consolidate schools. And no matter where they land, it'll be painful for those impacted communities. And trying to put a positive spin on it will be an uphill battle. I'm still paying attention to executive limitations for innovation schools. And I'm still watching to see what the impact will be. I do think that it was thrust on our community at a time when it was the last thing we needed to be spending our time and energy on. I'm paying attention to community engagement and communication practices. When DPS is approaching big changes and large questions, community engagement is still inadequate, and communication is not reaching our families that don't use email. Paying attention to staff retention. DPS is actually doing well right now. They actually have a surplus of teachers, but how will things look when the school year ends? Will some teachers leave in June? And how is the district setting up the teachers for success this next school year, as many of them are not going to survive another year if they have a year like they had this past year? The board switching to policy governance. The switch has made things confusing and challenging. And now if board members are being told to deflect all questions about district operations, where do community members go now to raise their concerns or to ask questions? And the last thing is the district's strategic plan. So the superintendent has been working with the team internally to write a new strategic plan. And the embargoed version of this draft version will be sent to transition team members. So I will see it on May 19th. And we'll have an opportunity to provide feedback till May 26th, and then it'll be made public on June 6th. So I'm looking forward to its release so the community can see the vision the superintendent has for the future of DPS. So I'm thinking about these things, and I imagine that some of you are as well. And if you are and you have concerns, I just encourage you to make them known, to come to DPS public comment. So public comment happens once a month, the third Thursday regular board meeting. It's this Thursday. If you do have a concern, it's all by Zoom, so you don't have to go in person. You need to sign up the night before by Wednesday at 5 p.m. and you can sign up on the Board of Education website. So I am now going to turn things over to Amanda, who's going to share about localized Central Park updates.
All right. Karen, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening and for telling us about the deck. I've served on the school accountability committee for one of the elementary school that my children have attended for a year, and I'll be serving on it next year. And so that's actually energy that I'd like to harness across the elementary schools, and I'll talk more about that. So hi, I'm Amanda Allshouse. I'm a board member with CPUN. As Geoff introduced me in the beginning, I've been past president for a year now. So I'm going to talk about three things. Geoff or Mark, can you tap forward? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about three things. Okay, yeah, so capacity, our survey results, and just some direction for the education committee. And I'll just do this quickly. So in terms of capacity, as Karen mentioned, the district as a whole seeing declining enrollment. However, as our community is still building out, we are, it was just that one slide that was up there. No, that's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. All right. So in terms of this community, we're still building houses. We're still seeing increasing enrollment. Enrollment information is publicly available from DPS. We've in the past had representatives from DPS come and talk to us about projections and capacity concerns, but we don't have that from DPS at this time, but we hope to in the coming months. All right. So a lot of people have questions about bubble years for all of the grades across elementary, middle, and high school. And so I had a look quickly at what capacity is looking like currently. So in the fifth grade, the current fifth grade class, we do seem to have, let's see, a bit of an increase in two of the incoming grades. So Inspire and Willow both have 20 more kids than the class ahead of it. The other schools in the community are pretty flat. If the current 5th grade class were to stay in the community and go on to Northfield High School, that would be an incoming freshman class of 810 kids compared to the current Northfield High School class, which is around 600. There's also a bubble year in 3rd grade where there's a bump that's coming from Inspire, although there might be some downward trends at the other elementary schools that make up for that. But we still have incoming classes that are bigger than the classes before, and we need space. We have a campus that hasn't been built out, and we need information from Denver Public Schools about what's going to happen on that campus and about what the plan is. So that is something that we as a committee hope to be able to engage the district and school leadership in the community in discussing in the coming months as we continue to build out and reach a steady state in the community. What is the final plan for the final parcel that needs to have a school building on it that Denver Public Schools owns? So one other thing that I was going to mention are just the survey results from this past fall. When CPUN sends out a survey, we do hope for wide community engagement. To a couple of the questions, 4 or 5 of the questions this past fall were on education. One of them was, hey, how do you feel about the Central Park enrollment zone for elementary school? And it's still something that the community in general is supportive of. And so we'll continue to support that as a mechanism for elementary schools in this community. The second thing was the adding an additional preference at I-70 when capacity allows for enrollment. So if you live on one side of I-70 or the other, should you have an additional preference for schools in that direction? And the community leans toward supporting that strongly. So when capacity allows, we'll have a conversation with DPS about that sort of thing. And so that's all I have to say tonight, and I will turn it back over to Geoff. And again, thank you to Karen.
Could you or Karen answer any?
Oh, are there any questions?
Amanda, could you just maybe articulate what the district's policy has been about Northfield High School in terms of making sure there's capacity?
Oh, I didn't touch that at all. Right. So in 2014, the Board of Education passed a passed something stating that there would be capacity for every student in this community to attend Northfield High School, and the capacity of the school would be such that 35% of the seats would be set aside for students from adjacent boundaries. So whatever the number of kids is, kind of like the affordable housing ratio, it's like you find out how many kids from this community want to attend, and then you calculate how many seats are needed based on 35% of the whole distribution coming from out of boundaries. So that was set up in 2014. So it's very important for the choice process in general, so that there are seats available for kids that want to choice into a program for that to exist. So we sincerely hope that the district sticks to that.
And you said there's one more plot of land for a school. Could you talk a little bit? Do you know much more about where that's and what it would be?
Oh goodness, it's north of 56th, and it's called Park Street too, but I don't think there's an actual street that's called Park Street. But can anyone help with more? Yeah. So it's north of 56, so it's north of Inspire. But I don't know the actual cross streets, but it would currently just be an empty field where whatever it is.
But there's not been a definitive plan or anything like that for middle school or whatever.
That's correct. And when I served on the CPAC, which looks at allocating budget or bond funds for the district in 2020, the CPAC declined funding a building on that parcel when the district advised that there would be other sources to fund that building. But we are not aware of what those funding sources would be. Yes.
So,
I planted Geoff. I didn't plant it.
Start times. They've made their announcement of what the plan is. Is there anything left to be done in terms of community participation or anything like that on that?
is that?
When we met with Director Quattlebaum and asked what the status was of Healthy Start Times and what we could expect from that, she said that it was something that the superintendent was handling the implementation of. And so we don't, I guess, as Karen suggested, going to public comment and board meetings would be one mechanism of giving feedback. But they do not seem to be actively collecting public input any longer. Karen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Just encouraging people to come to public comment mainly. It's like never say never. You know, the board could rescind its original resolution. The DPS could ask the board to act. So there are ways, even though Healthy Start Times have been published, it doesn't mean that there couldn't be changes made. So just encourage people to speak up.
Oh goodness. Okay, so so we had a handful of questions about the parcel, the location of the parcel, and can you just recap? Oh, and Geoff asked me to describe the enrollment promises from DPS with Northfield High School, I think. Oh, and then the last question was how is the district collecting feedback on Healthy Start Times? And so the suggestion there is to go to public comment. All right, thank you. Toss it back to you, Chris. Okay.
All right. Make sure we're okay. Okay, we're almost there, folks. We almost did it. And we're going to wrap things up with special guest here, Councilman Chris Herndon is going to. So, yeah, right.
Let's bring it home. Do I need to stand in a particular place?
No, right.
I'm good. Okay.
Just like that.
Talking to the community. Awesome. Hey, thank you. It's good to see everybody. I really want to first thank Central Park United Neighbors. I thought back as I was driving here. 2009 is when I became a block captain, and then got involved with, at the time, you know, Stapleton United Neighbors and CPUN. Now, the work that they do, I just want to thank you all for doing this, because this is not an easy lift, and you don't get enough thank you for the work that you all do, particularly the blood drive. So I know it was mentioned earlier, but we had 26 donations going to Children's Hospital, and I want to thank everybody that signed up. But the reality is there's still a blood shortage. And so you can go Lowry, you can go get blood there at Children's Hospital to get blood to make sure that we should never have a shortage. And then let's continue to draw attention to the inequities when it comes to the blood donations that we brought up during this blood drive that we held here. So I appreciate that. So what to talk about that's happened in the past year, and when I have 10 minutes, I certainly can't hit all of it. So one, if you have any questions, how you want to connect with me, multiple ways you can do it, call the office, 720-337-8888. You can certainly drop me an email as well, christopher.herndon, denvergov.org. Most of you have my email. I know that because of the emails that I get that are happening, but I always want to put that out, how you can connect with me. Got a great team, whether it be for scheduling, whether it be for constituent services. Please let us know how we can help. We're here to serve. One of the big things that's happened over the past year is redistricting. So once the census comes out, every 10 years, the city grew dramatically, over 700,000 people. Our district grew dramatically. 2010, we were at 55,000. 2020, we came in just over 70. So the shape of District 8 had to change. You know, we currently are all of Park Hill, all of Central Park, portions of Montbello and East Colfax. But because of the growth that has continued to grow in the far northeast, we had to shift our boundaries. So we still have Montbello as a part of it, but we have more because of the growth of Green Valley Ranch, Parkfield, et cetera. We have all of Central Park, that's still part of the new District 8. We now have all of East Colfax. So the East Colfax neighborhood that was south of Colfax Boulevard used to be a part of District 5. In the next municipal election, that will be a part of District 8. And Park Hill had to change as well. So Northeast Park Hill, and if you're not familiar with that, MLK North, that portion will be in District 8. And then any portion of Park Hill east of Monaco will be part of District 8. And I know that's really hard to describe, but if you just Google redistricting in Denver, all the new maps are on. That's going to be the new District 8. There will be a new council rep for that seat. I am termed out. I will be done in July of 2023. I know some of you are clapping, that's okay. So those opportunities for those people who are going to run, the municipal election is going to be in April. And I bring that up because the voters voted to move that election up. So that's going to be happening. You will have a new city council rep in approximately 14 months. There's also going to be an election this November. Don't forget about that. Gubernatorial, state reps, a couple of ballot measures. So please make sure you're doing your due diligence and voting accordingly on that. Things that are also happening, the conversations that were happening now, trash. So if you aren't aware, the city, you currently don't pay for your trash in regards to a fee. It is part of your taxes, but we've started the conversations about 3 months ago, whether to increase a fee for trash. Denver's current recycling rate is at 26%. The national average is 34%. How do we get residents to participate more in our composting, recycling, and trash? A proposal that's before the council, we've had conversations, not an official proposal, it will be coming in June, is to create a fee structure. And the reason what's the difference between a fee and a tax? Because we cannot, if we do increase taxes, it has to go to a vote of the board. This is a fee, and we are merely collecting money for the services that we're providing. So the fee would be stuff of the size of your trash container. Small one, the current proposal is $9, which is 35 gallons. If you have the 65-gallon container, it would be $13. And if you have the 95-gallon container, that would be $21. I'm sorry?
Per month?
Yes. So that would be a change. So this is up for consideration. Several people are aware because I've gotten emails, but we're still having this dialogue. 9, 13, 21. Now, from that fee, because currently we have composting, you have to pay for it, and your recycling is every other week, that will shift. So composting will now be available to all residents who would like that, and recycling would become weekly as well. So we would have trash weekly, you would have recycling weekly, and you have the opportunity for compost. That's a conversation that's happening right now. How do you feel about that? If you want to go to denvergov.org, that conversation dialogue came to the Land Use Transportation Committee, where the DOTI, Department of Transportation Infrastructure, they're the ones bringing it forward. They did a presentation, they asked questions. Please watch that if you want to learn more about that. We're happy to answer any questions about that as well. That is coming to council for consideration June 7th. And from that, we will decide whether to send that to the full council, vote of the full council, and then have that conversation. So that's coming up. Please let us know how you feel about that. Another interesting thing about trash. In most neighborhoods, whether you're in West Denver, South Denver, et cetera, if you have an alley, you have to put your trash on one side, north, south, east, west determination. What's unique about Central Park, we just put our trash cans outside of our garage. And I watched this Tuesday, because Tuesday is my trash day. I watched the trash cart come all the way up, do a U-turn, and go all the way down, up and down every alley twice. I have asked Dottie, why do we do that? Because if we think about sustainability, we think about efficiency, and then you realize that every other neighborhood is different and doesn't do it the way that Central Park does. I asked them to look into that. So this conversation is going to occur. I spoke with Geoff about this a couple of weeks ago, and the survey is going to come out to let individuals know that's probably going to change. And all that will require is, and Dottie's going to do their due diligence, education, that all the trash, recycling, compost will need to go to one side of the alley. So those trucks, which are massive, don't have to come up and do a UE up and down 2 different ways. Yes, Diane?
And that would be 84 miles of alleys in this community. That's how many miles of alleyway we have.
For that. So you're going to start that conversation, is going to continue as well. As a council, it just so happens this Friday, we're having our city council retreat. As we're talking about budget priorities, I know it's in May, but we're having a conversation. What does 2023 look like for how we spend your dollars? So we're having a full day retreat to talk about our priorities. What are your concerns as a community when it comes to anything city related? Please reach out to my office. Let me know, let us know, whether it be Amanda, Bonnie, or Leah. Let's continue that conversation, because the fall will be here shortly, where we're going to go through that budget process for you. So last thing I'd like to talk about is Northeast Denver Leadership Week. If you're not familiar with that, and I want to give kudos to the MCA, this will be the 12th year that I've done Northeast Denver Leadership Week. And if you're not familiar, we take high school students for a week and we show them different career, networking, leadership opportunities, financial literacy. We've done it every year since I first got elected in 2011. 2020, we had to go virtual because of COVID. 2021, we were in person. We had to shrink it. The cohort's normally 100 students. We had 35 last year. We're excited to get it up to 50, but I want to appreciate the MCA because we host the students here. And I want to appreciate all the sponsors. If you Google Northeast Denver Leadership Week.org, that's our website. I really appreciate all the work that goes into it. It's a great program for working with our young people and supporting them. So I always like to bring that up and talk about it. And I'm happy to answer any questions now, but if you want to go home, I get it, because you can get in touch with me any way possible. But I'll look at Geoff to see if there's anything else that you have on your minds that I can speak to briefly before you go. Yes, ma'am.
Just real quick. So with the composting and recycle, it's going to be picked up weekly. Is it going to be included in the charge of the trash?
Yes.
As well, or is that separate?
So if city council passes the fee structure, then once you pay whatever size trash can you have, that'll be the only cost you pay. Because currently right now, for those who are involved in composting, you have to pay for composting, that fee will go away. And so the question was, did I need to repeat that, Brian? The question was, how exactly will the fee structure be if that passes for the proposal coming forward? You will no longer have to pay for anything else just for that fee 9, 13, or 21. Yes, ma'am.
I saw a hand raised, Brian, on the, sorry, came up on the screen. Now see it?
One side of the alley, is it like trash on one side and recycling on the other, or is it like all bins on one side, and then how do those people get over?
So the question was, should we move forward to the structure where every other neighborhood has bins on one side? What would that look like? So Dottie hasn't determined it yet. My understanding is it's all on one side, whether it's trash, recycling, composting, it all goes to one side. And certainly you have to be thoughtful about how you do that, for the reason that Amanda just mentioned, making sure people can get in and out of their garage.
Hey, Brad, we had a question. We also had a question online, so he can talk.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Herndon, for your service. That was a good run. The question is, I didn't get quite clear, why not go through Tabor? I know that some of us want to repeal Tabor, but we have it. It is difficult to pass new taxes, but if that is the only mechanism that we have to do it into the taxes, I would prefer that option. The tax code treats fees differently for the taxpayers than it does taxes. So for the community benefit, it's better to have an increase in the taxes to cover for recycling, composting, and garbage rather than a fee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I'm trying. I mean, this is kind of I think it's great to see. Like, if everything's on one side, like my alley, some people aren't getting out of their garage.
We can't hear what's being said.
I'll repeat it. Go ahead.
They're going to park in the street and for them, the cars can get broken.
Yeah.
So just, it could be that if it's like recycling, composting side, trash, sort of.
The comment was about the mention that their alley is unable to get trash, recycling, compost all on their one particular side without it impacting people's garage. And this is exactly why Di's gonna have to do some research on the alleys and do some due diligence to make sure we can, well, that does not happen.
If they put it on the other side of the alley,
Okay. But he's fine if they put it on the other side, but his side, it won't work.
So as you said, you're going into your 2023 sort of budgeting priorities and council retreat. Like, what are you thinking about in terms of priorities for 2025? Is there anything you want feedback on from our neighborhood?
Well, you know, every district is different, but you can imagine. So the question was, as we go into 2023, what are some of the things I'm focusing on? Homelessness and public safety. I mean, that's no surprise to most people. We know the increases in crime that have happened in our community, how the pandemic, has impacted housing affordability and people experiencing homelessness. So what are we doing as a city to continue to help those? I'm proud of the work that we've done in District 8. I won't list the successes here, but we need to make sure that, one, all the districts are doing that. The downtown core, for example, is not going to solve the homelessness problem. Every district surrounding needs to do their part as well. And I'm thankful and proud of the work that we have done for those people experiencing homelessness, as well as increasing building. So that's a key piece as well. And then look, public safety. Crime is up. Neighbors want to feel safe in their particular neighborhoods. And what are we doing to supporting those who risk their life every day, holding them accountable when they go beyond the scope of their responsibility? So those are two of the main things, which probably I imagine every city council person is saying the same thing. And then we'll kind of get into more specific particular district needs as well. Sidewalks, you know, bike lanes, things of that nature. Our youth.
Anything else? Thank you so much, Councilman. Thank you. All right, well, we made it to the end of our formal agenda and we did it only 12 minutes late, which is not too bad for this meeting, I must say. Thank you all in attendance, both online and here in the room. It's much appreciated. I do want to just take a minute. Does anyone that's online or in the room want to say something or share something? Or, oh, go ahead, Sandra.
Is the Orange Bag Project. I hope everybody comes to the MCA to pick up their orange bags and donate to Denver Rescue Mission and A Precious Child.
Thank you so much. Sandra was just saying that this weekend is the Orange Bag Project, which supports Denver Rescue Mission and The Precious Child, and you can pick up your bags here at the MCA. Anyone else? Hey.
Hi everyone, my name's Eric. I'm with Flyte Co Brewing.
Yeah. We're going to bring up Eric from Flyte Co Brewing. That's why you heard the applause.
All right, we'll get closer to the microphone here. Progress is coming along over there. We're repainting, redecorating it. We are just so excited to have this opportunity. Whole universe had to come together, stars to align for us to be able to move into an old control tower, be an aviation themed brewery. Big part of our brand, we donate 10% of our profits to the future of aviation. I was given a scholarship when I was 16 to get my private pilot's license. It changed my life. I immediately turned around and started volunteering, getting other people into aviation. It's such a great career path for people. A lot of good life skills that it teaches. Basically, I wanted to let everyone know we're shooting for opening in July, and we need to hire about 100, 150 people. So if you know anyone that's looking for full-time, part-time work, front of house, back of house, kitchen, we've got activities. We're going to be offering benefits, health, medical, dental to anyone working over 30 hours a week. You got it. Visit our website right now, flytecobeer.com. Keep an eye out. We'll post a now hiring sign on the side of the building with information too. But yeah, just send anyone our way that you know, and we're excited to have you all in the new Flyte Co this summer. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
The question was, do you brew any non-alcoholic beers? So we don't have the equipment to do that. We usually stock some. We'll buy other non-alcoholic beers. If we made it, it probably wouldn't taste that great. So we'll leave it to the experts that can do that. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man. Anybody else online, perhaps? I think we're good. Everybody, thank you again. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see faces.